Hello and welcome to this video. The topic for today is going to be making your dollars stretch further. This is Insight by Vincent J. So why am I making this video? Well, I'm making this video because one, I want to help people when I recognize that there's a problem that they're going through. And it's no secret, right now everyone is going through some kind of financial burdens, even from the very rich to the very poor. Those that aren't playing it smart are going to end up suffering the worst. And so we have to be proactive about everything that we're doing right now because so many people are seeing that this is just not sustainable and we have to take action. So, how are we going to make our dollars stretch further? Well, I think we have to take a holistic approach. We have to determine where all of this is going. So, I want you to take a quick look at your personal finances, your personal situation. No one's going to know your situation like you. Everyone's different. Some of us have families. Some of us are living alone. Some of us are living at home or with relatives. Some of us may be not living anywhere at all and are homeless. This video is intended for anyone out there right now who is just trying to figure out, where can I go? Where is this all going? And, a lot of us would feel, I think, a little bit helpless and hopeless. Some of us maybe would feel a little confused. And some of us may feel nothing at all because we just think everything's normal and we just continue on as we always have. But I want to just take a quick look at where this is all going. So we look in the media, we see stories of inflation, we see stories of cost of living soaring, people not being able to make it, having to work multiple jobs, maybe losing their jobs, getting laid off, recessionary talk. Things of that nature cause one to, evaluate their situation. I feel everyone should look at their situation right now and take some proactive steps. And this could be for anyone who's just, whether you're doing well or you're not doing so well. I think we have to learn how to make our dollar stretch further. And so, approaching your situation as it is, where are you? Well, like any other battle you face, you really need to acknowledge that there's a problem. Okay. So we look at the situation, we look at, the scenario of, am I going to have the same level of income that I did last year versus this year? And, for some of us, there may be that possibility of a cost of living increase in a job. For some of us, we may be looking at reduced hours, and we're going to have to make some serious cuts to our budget, to avoid losing out on everything we've worked for. So, like any other battle you face, acknowledge that there's a problem. Even if you're very wealthy, we all know that inflation is eroding the value of your dollar. As we speak, the value of your dollar is worth less today than at any other time in history. So, what are our expectations? What can we live without? A lot of times I find with, just different sorts of people, I think our expectations are often just not feasible. And it really doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, whether you've lived in poverty your whole life or you came from wealth. We all tend to have, grandiose expectations, that may just not be feasible, or at least not feasible at this time. So, what do I mean? What I mean is, if you are living on a fixed income, you can barely make your housing expenses. If you have a car, you're barely paying for that and holding on to it and keeping it legal, paying insurance, etc. You're struggling to put gas in your car because, the cost of fuel is increasing. What can you live without? Okay. And I'm asking this honestly because our expectations, I'll say, at least in Western culture in America, are that you must have a vehicle by the time you're 16, and throughout your ages, and you get your retirement car when you retire, and it's some bright shiny toy. Okay, let me just give you a reality check right now. That, although it is convenient, although it is necessary in most cases, unless you live in a very close knit inner urban area, that's not sustainable. Okay, it's just not. Why is that? Look at the cost of a vehicle. Look at the maintenance expense. Look at the cost of fuel. Look at the financing and the interest rate that you're going to be paying on that vehicle, that right now is higher than any other time. Okay? That is not sustainable. Paying $1,000 a month for a car that's a depreciable asset is not sustainable. So, what can you live without? Okay? Is this car keeping you from making your rent? Is this car keeping you from putting food on the table? Maybe it's time to evaluate whether that car is really worth it or not. Okay. If someone relies on their vehicle, I get it, to get to work, to, make money, do deliveries. I understand. Totally makes sense. But understand this, you're going to have to make cuts somewhere. And that car is often one of the biggest money pits imaginable. Okay. So, what can you live without? A lot of people don't really look at they look at their big picture expenses, right? They look at their rent, they look at their mortgage, they look at, medical expenses in the event that that's not something that's avoidable, which right, vices. Look at your vices, okay? People who typically have poor decision making have vices. Whether that be alcohol, whether it be tobacco, whether that be illegal drugs, whether that's gambling. Okay. And I'm firmly against all of these things. You need to get those out of your life. Period. End of discussion. Look, I know people have addictions. I know people have mental health concerns and problems. And, they're trying to run from things with this, whatever it is, the alcohol, the drugs, whatever it is that they're doing, that they're not dealing with reality. Okay, but there's other vices out there, and a lot of them, they stem from those unrealistic expectations that we were speaking about earlier. The idea that you have to have luxury goods, you have to have all of the subscriptions possible, you have to have antiquated ideas of wealth and success, like a 60-inch TV and cable access. That's, I mean, we really need to look at, can you live without those things? Because if you cut them now, it'll be easier in the long run to make progress later for a brighter day. You know, what really makes a home? Is it the people that are in that home with you, that you love, that you want to provide for, that you want to do better for? What makes a home? Do you really need to go out and finance furniture, paying multiple times over what that furniture is actually worth, because it's usually processed in a facility and sprayed with chemicals that are probably not good for you to be having in your house anyways? What can you live without? And I'm not trying to pass judgment on anyone, please don't feel that I am. This is my advice for you, this is my opinion, as a sticking point for many people. Okay, and in my life, I experienced a lot of these things that I'm speaking about. Okay, I understand struggling. I understand poverty. I understand what all of these things look like. But my hope for you is that you take some of this advice and you use it in your day to day to evaluate what you're thinking. Because let me tell you, it's a mindset. It's a way that you are thinking that is causing you a lot of your problems, that, what, ultimately wind up in our finances. Because let's just face it, everything ties back to the dollar. Okay. So if you are throwing money down the drain, acknowledge the problem. Okay, so enough of that. This is a starting point, basically. This is a starting point for all of us. This is a starting point for this channel. I want to help you, okay? I want to provide insight from experience, from, someone who has just had a variety of struggles and some of my mistakes. I want to share with you because it's a working out of the processes. It's thinking it through, critical thinking, okay? So just getting started. We've already gone over what can you live without. Okay, so let's look at the approaches we can take to this. Well, ground zero. Ground zero is the place where we're assuming the worst has already happened. Okay, you have to make cuts. You have to make decisions right now that are going to affect your immediate and your long-term future. Okay, what do? We have to look at our pie. We have to look at the big piece of our pie and the little pieces of our pie, because the little pieces of our pie ultimately add up. And that's the things that we can typically live without. Okay. These larger pieces of the pie, they're not too hard to figure out in this day and age. It's going to be things like your rent, your housing. If you're living with someone, it may be, your car, whatever that situation is. We have to look at it holistically. We have to look at it as everything is on the chopping block, and we may need to figure out, what do we do right now? So the second approach is what I call the jump down. What does that mean? I'm trying to give, some opinions on how to jump up, step up, and to, address and make these dollars stretch further. We'll jump down. Well, let's assume just for a moment that you are one of these people, and this is not knocking you in any way, shape, or form, but let's just say you're an ostrich and you have basically just sunk your head into the ground, and you're going to be down there for, some time. So let's just say you're there and you're an ostrich with your head in the ground. Okay, well, you need to pull your head up and you need to wake up and look around and assess the situation. Things are changing. Things are changing rapidly. And you know what? Maybe you've had some unrealistic expectations this whole time. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and jump down so that we can help ourselves on the ground level before we hit ground zero, so that way we can stay in a level that we're comfortable with, that we know that our basic needs are going to be met and the basic needs of those around us are going to be met. So, once again, kick any and all vices. I can't emphasize this enough. Okay. A very real correlation in poverty is typically what? Vices. You look at alcoholics, you look at people who are addicted to drugs. Okay, poverty is knocking. It's time to let those things go. Obviously, gambling, and when I say gambling, I don't mean driving down to Vegas and, putting everything on red. I'm talking about gambling when you're going out and you are maybe purchasing things like lottery tickets and scratch off tickets, as well as maybe going to bingo halls or, gaming rooms. If, that's something that is going on around you, I would advise to stay away from all of those things. But nonetheless, people do some of these things unknowingly. They see a big, jackpot on the billboard, and they think, you know what, I'm going to go down to my convenience store and just, spend my entire paycheck. That is ridiculous. Stop doing that. Don't even spend one penny on that, okay? It's not going to work. Statistically, every odd is stacked against you, and you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. Look at your resources that you have right in front of you, okay? What skills do we have? We need to be asking ourselves that every day. What skills do I have? What skills does my household have? What can we do? Do we have maybe lawn equipment that's just, for an occasional, cut, but we, could go out and maybe offer lawn services? I'm very much in the frame of we need to be entrepreneurs, we need to be self starters, we need to be motivated. That's the only way. So when we jump down, when we cut these things that are holding us down, we need to look at our situation and we need to understand how to build back. We need to understand how to build ourselves up. Okay. Do you have a car that you are, basically maybe just using for a commute, or it's just kind of just sitting there? What could we do with that? Maybe a ride share service, maybe a delivery service. I understand, some people, this may not all make sense for you, and you need to assess your situation as you see fit. You need to do what's best for you. Do you have a skill though that's transferable that everyone needs? Can you cut hair? Maybe you fix cars. you know Now would be the time, I guarantee you, to ask people and to offer a very reasonable price, since everyone's trying to cut back. you know hey, I can do your haircut for maybe less than the established place, or maybe I can fix your car. I'm a mechanic, but I know for sure I'm going to have time maybe this weekend. And I need to make some money, and I know that you really can't afford taking it to the dealership or taking it to a shop and getting ripped off. So it's things like that. Side hustles are very popular. You see in a lot of different content, people are talking about side hustles. But you really need to be smart, and you need to plan these things out. You need to come up with a business model. You need to understand what your core competency is, and you need to, you know, really stick to it. That's what you need to focus on. Okay, you need to look at things, and this is where I'm hoping to maybe create some content that would help in this. I know it's out there, but cost, volume, profit analyses. Basically, we just want to be looking at what are we charging, what are we having to put out, and does it make sense? If it doesn't make sense monetarily, guys, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay. If you go to the store and you're in the restaurant business and you're having to pay a lot of money, or you're trying to maybe sell something like a service like washing windows, understand your costs, understand how many customers it's going to take. And like I said, this is something I'm hoping to build into, to show, from a cost accounting standpoint. But understand, it's not simple. Okay. Nothing in life ever is. It's always a challenge. It's always learning. Thank God. Learning. People, we got to learn. We need to think. We need to increase our understanding, and we need more skills. Okay. And that, myself included, there's always potential to grow and to learn. But we also have to understand our commitments, right? Yes, you may be working 2, 3 jobs. Been there. I understand. There's not a whole lot of time. Maybe you're trying to put, food on the table for your family. Make time for that family, because let me tell you, when they're gone, they're gone. When something happens to someone close to you, uh, you know, those people are gone forever, and it just shows like the shortness of life, and life is a vapor. That's what they're going to tell you. So, what do we have to be doing today? Well, we need to be redeeming the time. We need to create goals for ourselves and for our family. Let me emphasize, this will not be a cakewalk, but we can't waste an opportunity. We can't waste money. We can't waste savings. You know, if your goals right now are something frivolous like a vacation, or maybe another depreciable asset like a new car, just go ahead and, I want you to analyze that and just think that this should be to better myself and better others. Okay. Because you will be more productive, you will have more opportunities if you take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way. Okay. Just really think about it, guys. This isn't going to be easy, but if we make those necessary steps now, greater things are in store later. Okay. And this is definitely not, any kind of creation of more expenses. I don't believe in it takes money to make money. Okay, there should be a healthy investment, a healthy cost benefit analysis that's made, but we need to learn from this time. Um, this time I'm speaking of, the post pandemic era, as I like to call it, the post logic era, because things don't make sense, guys. We really need to use our heads. We need to learn from this time. History often repeats itself when we make the same poor decisions as our former selves. So we need to be new people. We need to be actively seeking out what it is that we need to do. What is our purpose in life? What are we doing here on earth? Okay. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I will tell you right now, that has taken my whole thought process off of things here on earth and on things above. And I know that I need to be outward growth minded in terms of I need to be helping others. I need to be helping others achieve something each day that I can. You know, we're put on earth to be used as instruments, and we need to be making educated decisions, all right? We need to be making better conscious decisions that aren't, based on fear and the world's going to tell you differently. They're going to try to steer you in every direction, try to scare you. Guys, there doesn't need to be any fear of missing out. We know that if we're doing God's will, that things are going to work out. And this channel, this is for the young and old alike. Um, you know, I feel we're always, overlooking each other and trying to pigeonhole one another, but there's nothing new under the sun. We all face the same problems. We all think differently, but we can all make better decisions. And so I just hope to provide a little bit of insight with this channel and to just help others make better decisions, make educated decisions. And, I want to teach as well as motivate. And this is just my platform. This is